The Clear Creek County Sheriff makes his first statement since a shooting involving his deputies made national headlines. His new support of a mental health response team seems to indicate a change of heart. As the world changes around us, libraries are finding a whole new mission.
We're pretty much the most public building of public buildings.
Colorado librarians are now on the front lines, helping communities in need. The same argument 4 years later, a Colorado baker is becoming a regular in court for his refusal to bake cakes that he deems a violation of his religious beliefs. And farm workers in Palisade bid peach season and Colorado farewell, at least for now. All of that is next. 4 months after Christian Glass was shot and killed by a Clear Creek County deputy, the county wants to form a team that might have prevented his death. The sheriff and county commissioners have agreed to form a crisis response team, mental health professionals who respond to mental health calls. That's something that the sheriff didn't think would work 2 years ago when it was recommended after another shooting involving his deputies. After 3 weeks of silence about this.
Step out of the fucking car now.
Clear Creek County Sheriff Rick Albers released a statement Wednesday about one of his deputies shooting and killing Christian Glass. He was in the midst of a mental health crisis. We understand there is a multitude of information pertaining to the June 2022 incident, he wrote. This incident has been a tragedy for everyone. In that statement, the sheriff says his office is collaborating with the county's Board of Commissioners in the research and development of a crisis response team.
We've been talking about this for a long time. We need to get action done.
A sentiment he echoed at a county board meeting on Tuesday. It is not a sentiment the sheriff has always agreed with. Back in 2020, a grand jury reviewed another Clear Creek County shooting of a man with a history of mental health crises. Grand jury cleared the 2 deputies in the shooting death of Darren Patterson, but it also made recommendations to the county. They said Clear Creek County had insufficient resources for people with mental health problems, that the county needed to enable law enforcement with resources to respond and identify mental health resources that could be immediately available to law enforcement to help those in mental health crises.
We're having a work session to discuss mental health and enforcement.
The county commissioners and the sheriff talked about that recommendation in a meeting back in 2020.
You commissioners are familiar with are these crisis intervention teams.
At the time, Sheriff Albers shot down the idea of special responders for mental health calls.
I can see where that would work, maybe in a bigger city where they get more calls. I don't think there's a supply and demand enough to have a 24/7 crisis intervention team at this point in Clear Creek County. They'd be doing a lot of sitting around.
Nearly 2 years to the date of that meeting, after a shooting that drew international attention to his department, Sheriff Albers seems to have had a change of heart.
It's almost better to have an outside agency come in and do this.
Last summer, the county board of Clear Creek met with the commissioners in Gilpin County to talk about creating some sort of mental health responding team that the counties could share. The sheriff seemed more on board back then. But 15 months later, they are still talking about creating that team. The deputy who shot and killed Glass is back on the street while the DA reviews that shooting. A Lakewood baker who has been the subject of a 2018 Supreme Court case for refusing to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding is back in court, this time over his refusal to bake a cake celebrating a gender transition. Jack Phillips, the owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop, is appealing last year's district court decision that his refusal to bake the gender transition cake violated state discrimination laws. The penalty, $500. Phillips argues that baking the cake would conflict with his religious beliefs, and his attorneys have taken that case to the State Court of Appeals. The court didn't rule on Phillips' appeal today. Attorneys for Autumn Scardina, the customer suing Phillips, argue that he violated a state law protecting LGBTQ customers from business discrimination. In the weeks to come, the U.S. Supreme Court will take up Colorado's discrimination law again as well. Justices will hear the case of a Colorado web designer who says she shouldn't have to make wedding websites for same-sex couples. The historic site dedicated to one of Colorado's darkest days is about to get a lot bigger. The Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Site was established back in 2007 to commemorate the 1864 assault on hundreds of Native people. 230 Native people were killed, many of them women and children. Today, the National Park Service announced a 3,500-acre expansion of that site thanks to the purchase of shortgrass prairie land. The purchase serves 2 purposes: to protect both the site of the massacre and the native prairie ecosystem there. They are a group that you don't always think about being on the front lines of helping people with addiction. They're helping people who need mental health resources or a safe place for their families and their kids. Libraries can do all of that under one roof if they have planned for it. Anusha Roy takes a look at how that is playing out in our community.
When looking at this boarded-up church through the fence in Westwood,
I get really excited.
Natalia Sullivan sees the needs of a community come to life.
People sharing their hopes and dreams and wishes for their families and then being able to actually do something.
She's a part of the nonprofit group Lifespan Local, turning part of this old church into a library.
The resource that we learned the most was the most important to families that is like quasi-governmental. The most trusted quasi-governmental entity is the library.
Westwood's current library is the smallest in the city. 18% of the people living in this neighborhood don't have access to internet at home. And by building a new and bigger one,
Programs like their early childhood education program, their New Americas project that really support immigrant and refugee families. The library is a place where people feel safe to learn and play and ask for support.
It's going to be co-located with mental health services, a legal clinic, and early childhood education resources. All signs of how the library system's role is morphing.
As a library, we're kind of always scanning the community environment and saying, like, what are the services that people need?
Rachel Fuel, the Central Library Administrator in downtown, has worked in Denver for 12 years.
The library provides resources for assignments or job seeking. And we also provide resources and connections for people who have substance use disorders, who are struggling with their housing, who are struggling with relationships.
Since 2017, library staff reversed 40 overdoses inside Denver libraries, most of them in the downtown location. Over the years, they've hired 8 social workers and peer navigators because that's what the staff said they needed.
Those are folks who have lived experience, maybe with housing challenges in the past, maybe are refugees, maybe are veterans, but have lived experience in some of the ways that we frequently see customers come in and say, here's what my situation is. Can you help me in any way?
And while Rachel didn't foresee this being her role,
I don't think there was any way for us to predict.
librarians said their doors are open.
We are the most public of public buildings. People can walk in anytime we're open with whatever's going on in their life.
So the Westwood Library branch, which is in a historically underserved community, is expected to open next year if everything goes as planned. It's going to have early childhood education programs, a teaching kitchen, a community center, all built into that same building. And it's being funded through a bond that voters approved a few years ago. So the money's there. It's just the planning and making sure the construction happens on time.
Denver's doing some groundbreaking work here, and it sounds like they're sharing it with a lot of other libraries.
Right. I mean, this has been something they've been working on for, the last decade or so, right? And continuously trying to improve it, and now they're having those conversations with other libraries that maybe aren't as far into that process to share what they've learned, what's gone well, what hasn't, and make sure that they also are able to share those resources.
Changing roles in a changing world. Anusha Roy, thank you. Every week, Next viewers come together to help nonprofits, help our neighbors in need. Here's Kyle with more on this week's Word of Thanks.
We see a lot of pink each October, and there are national nonprofits in the fight against breast cancer. But I want to tell you about a small local nonprofit that has a direct impact on the lives of Coloradans with breast cancer. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports Sense of Security, which grants money to breast cancer patients as their cost of treatment and other expenses exceeds their monthly incomes. Let's just hear directly from the women who have been helped. Kale wrote, "They took away some of the stress. When everything ran out, Sense of Security came through." Victoria, "A Sense of Security allowed me to be present, minimizing fear, which gave my son back his mommy." Christine says they helped her feel like she wasn't lost in debt. Marcella called it the silent assistance you'd hope you'd never need. The nonprofit pays $500 worth of bills per month, pays them directly. Rent, car payment, mortgage, light bill, groceries. As women in Colorado are in a fight for their lives, Sense of Security helps take some of the financial pressure off their families. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 871-1491, and I'll send you that link to donate. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us started. I feel like this is the kind of thing that you'd all hope to do for a family member, or friend, or neighbor. Well, tonight, we can do it for neighbors we just haven't met yet.
You asked, and we answered. A long-running media standoff means Colorado sports fans shouldn't plan any watch parties for the city's two best teams just yet. And the end of peach season signals the long-awaited return home for farm workers who've spent months away from family. Their sacrifice in their own words. Next. It's that time of year. With NBA and NHL seasons just around the corner, Stan and Mary ask the perennial question: have Comcast and Altitude come to an agreement to carry Colorado Avalanche and Denver Nuggets games? I certainly hope that's not Stan Kroenke asking. No, they have not. Make it 3 straight years now that Altitude will be blacked out on Comcast and Dish Network. That means if the Avalanche and Nuggets are playing a game that's broadcast locally and you have Comcast, you can't watch it legally. The last round of contract negotiations between Altitude and Comcast, it failed back in June. Bad news for fans. Comcast tells us Altitude hasn't presented any new offers. We did reach out to Altitude Sports as well, haven't heard back. You can watch some games on Comcast, though, like next Wednesday's Avs opener, which is airing nationally on TNT. But any games that air locally through Altitude will not be available on Comcast unless a new agreement is reached.
Oh, it's a beautiful day across Colorado. Bright blue skies out there and still tough to find any clouds. This is our live camera around Fort Collins, downtown Denver, looking beautiful as well. Little haze. Otherwise, it's been a great night. We have been looking at a couple of scattered showers, those primarily all south of I-70, around the San Juans, along those higher peaks. A little bit of light snowfall late tonight. Here for the metro area, what you see is what you get. It's going to be a quiet night for many of us. And as we go throughout that overnight period into early tomorrow, another gorgeous fall day on deck for us. For a Thursday, plenty of sunshine to kick off the day. 4 or 5 o'clock, we're still looking good around the urban corridor. Couple of isolated showers still firing up in the mountains. And once again, across the San Juans, we have a tropical system lurking to our south that's just bringing a little bit of that moisture into southern Colorado. Otherwise, this ridge of high pressure is going to keep us dry and fairly warm before the next storm system rolls in on Friday. Enjoy these temperatures sitting in the lower 70s across much of eastern Colorado tomorrow. Some 50s and 60s up in the mountains. We will drop off about 10 degrees on Friday, and then so far the weekend and into next week, beautiful.
Palisades peach farmers are ready to pack up and head home after months of hard work. We will hear from them next. No need for a calendar when peach season in Colorado is over, so is summer. Palisade peaches are iconic, and farm workers on the western slope work year-round to get them to us. Since April, our Ann Herbst has spent time at Rancho Durazno, a fruit farm in Palisade. She learned about the crews who come up from Central and South America for months at a time and the sacrifices they make to have a more stable life back home.
Me gusta mucho este rancho, me gusta esa montaña, levantarme en la mañana y ver esto es muy bonito. Mi nombre es Adolfo Yevismea Jupa, vengo de un pueblo pesquero que se llama Paredoncito, es municipio de Benito Juárez, Sonora, el estado de Sonora, México. Mis apellidos son de una tribu, soy de una tribu que se llaman mayos, no mayas, mayos. Y mi trabajo pues era pescar, todo lo contrario de aquí, es ahora el campo aquí. Vine a encontrar este trabajo y me siento muy a gusto trabajar aquí en el campo, muy bien, muy a gusto. Y decirles pues que esto lo hacemos nosotros con mucho amor y con ganas. Ver cuando el árbol está sin hojas, sin nada, llegar, podar, transformar todo en un árbol que empiece a dar sus flores, sus hojas, sus frutos. Ya cuando cosecha se siente uno bien orgulloso, como ver que gracias a nosotros salió eso. No nosotros nomás, el patrón, mucha gente colabora para eso, ¿no? Y eso me llena de gusto a mí. tengo tres hijas allá en México. Gracias a este trabajo, pues dos de ellas han ¿cómo le diré? Pues han salido adelante en su trabajo, tienen su trabajo hoy, son teachers, son maestras, gracias a esto. Venimos a trabajar, no venimos a hacer daño, venimos a ayudarlos a los rancheros y para la gente que disfrute esto.
Adolfo heads home to Mexico soon. He says his wife is about to retire. He'll be back to Palisade in February. For a more complete look at the life on the farm where Adolfo works, check out Ann's story on 9news.com. We'll finish with your feedback next. This week, you have a chance to help breast cancer patients cover basic expenses and focus on their recovery. Kyle has more on this week's Word of Thanks.
This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign is helping a small local nonprofit that helps women going through treatment for breast cancer. Sense of Security pays some of their bills each month so that they can focus on their health, their family, their job. A woman named Adele said that she feared losing her house as she went through treatment. Sense of Security helped with a mortgage so she could concentrate on healing. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you the link to join me in donating. You know, a few dollars here and a few dollars there, we can bring the only relief that we can offer to families in Colorado who are up against a cancer diagnosis. And we know from their own words just how much it matters.
Finish with your feedback now. Becca, on the statement from Clear Creek County Sheriff Rick Albers about the death of Christian Glass. The incident is a very sanitized wording for our response caused the death of Christian Glass. And we finish with Mac Landekar, who wrote, "Hey, Steve Steger, digging those specs. I had to do something to compete with Marshall, and I realized as I'm sitting at my computer that I had a little lump here, so I had to keep them on for the show." Oh well, we'll see you next time.